In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good morning, everyone. A special word of welcome to our guests and our visitors. We hope you feel at home among us. I want to welcome on this morning especially the Executive Director of Seafarers House, Ms. Laura Carbonell, who is here. Please stand so they can see you. Laura, welcome. Next to her is a volunteer coordinator that you already know, our beloved Mrs. Erica Sears. Stand up, Erica. And Father Sandy Sears, her husband, was here yesterday at the 6 o'clock Mass, and he spoke to our crowd. We're happy to have his other half here. He did confess that you were the better half. A wise old man once said, "Life is unfair. I lost my car keys at the ball game, and I never found them. I lost my sunglasses at the beach, and I never found them. I lost my socks in the washing machine, and never found them. I lost 5 pounds while I was on a diet, and then I found 10 more. Vacation. I ate whatever I wanted. Good and evil exist. I'm going to repeat it. Good and evil exist. Today's gospel takes us directly there. The seed was good, right? Don't you remember the book of Genesis? God created everything, and he saw that it was good. Everything God created was good. That's right. God made everything good, including the good seed. And of course, the wheat was coming up, and then what happened? There were weeds. The first reaction was to say, "Oh, look, that was bad seed." And the person in the parable said, "No, no, no, no. This was done by an enemy." The fact is, good and evil exist. And not just do good and evil exist, good and evil coexist. It's part of the reality of our world. Jesus invites us through this parable to look, to stay alert, not to fear evil, that would be the wrong reaction, but to seek to do good. We can only combat evil with good. And you know what I discovered in my time of prayer and reflection over this homily this weekend? Was that we have a similarity in Matthew, you know. We're more familiar with Matthew 25, right? The Last Judgment, remember that? Where Jesus says the king's going to be there, and they're going to separate the sheep from the goats and the goats from the sheep, and the righteous will go with God, and the others will go to the eternal fire, the condemnation. And it's interesting because we don't know this because we don't live in an agricultural society, but Jesus is preaching to an agricultural society, and his own people knew from the fields of Israel what it was like to have the sheep and the goats. They grazed together. Isn't that awesome? The sheep and the goats, they grazed together during the day. But at night, the shepherd had to separate them because the needs of the sheep and the goats were different. And so he had to separate the sheep from the goat. And now we have this parable where you have to separate, right, the wheat from the weeds. In the midst of this whole reflection, we also have to remember something. We are all saints and sinners. We all fall short of being the best we can be. And so we struggle even within ourselves with the weeds. I've got to tell you, I grew up here in South Florida. I grew up in West Kendall. My mom still lives in the house where I grew up. My first job when I was 7 years old was pulling weeds. And I used to have a bag, a black bag. And it's funny, I learned this at home. You know, my mom would say, "Saca la hierba mala," you know, get rid of the bad weeds. And I would go to the yard, because those houses, you know, were still kind of new. It was horse country. And we bought our house only a few months after it was built, and there was nothing around my house, just a bunch of weeds. That's what we had, weeds. That was their home. We were taking them out of their home, their habitat. But there we have this new lawn, you know, all pretty, and the weeds are coming out. And so I discovered very early on that the only way you get rid of those, la hierba mala, or the bad weed, is you got to pull it from the roots. Because the more you pull it from the roots, the better it is. And I would fill bags with that stuff. And then I discovered I can do a business, see? Yeah. Because I discovered the other 7 houses on my block also had lots of weeds. So I would go with my little plastic black bag, and I would say, you know, and it was $5, a huge yard. Man, I wish I could find someone to do that here at St. Benedict for $5. We got plenty of weeds. But I got to tell you, you've got to get it out of the roots. So every time I hear this parable, something inside me says, I don't like that methodology that Jesus is promoting through this parable. Just let the weeds grow, let the weeds grow. My mom wouldn't go for that. But it's interesting because the methodology does teach a spiritual lesson. And it's the fact that the wheat grows among the weeds. The wheat and the weeds grow together. Our job is not to determine what's weed, what's wheat. Our job is to discern what is good, to seek what is good, to do what is good. Because when we do what is good, then what happens is we're combating evil. With the best medicine for evil is good. Being patient is part of this gospel. Something that I'm not really good at. God's time is perfect. You may think now is the time to act or do, but God may say, hold on a second. God's time is always perfect. We rush to fix everything and immediately, but oftentimes we make mistakes when we do that because we judge too quickly. Let God handle the timing. Perhaps one of the lessons we have here is, you know, maybe you think it needs fixing right now, but God is saying, wait a minute. Let's give it time. And perhaps the other thing we can learn is that maybe we can focus on our own growth. We waste a lot of energy complaining about the evil in the world. Too many Christians sound like a newscast. I remember at the early Mass during the week, one of my parishioners always came in, and during the prayers of the people, she would tell you all the most horrible news. I mean, I read the news, but I kind of scanned it over. But she read it in detail because she told you how many people were shot, where they were shot, how many went to the hospital, how many survived. And in the prayers of the people, you could just find out all the news. There's no need to read it. You find out right there in the prayers of the people in the Lady Chapel at St. Benedict. If there was an earthquake somewhere, you found out right away. If there was a tragedy, you found out right away. Something bad someone did, you found out right away. And the reason I say this to you is too many of us sound like that. Too many of us are quick to say what's wrong with the world, yet we don't really spend enough time thinking of the good. But remember, the wheat is what grows and provides nourishment, not the weeds. The weeds are good to be thrown out, to be pulled up, to be burnt, as the gospel says. It is the wheat that nourishes. The weeds just choke up and produce nothing. So we have to make the choice as Christians in this world. What do we do? We are called to be that wheat, to do what's best to feed the world in a good way. And I'll tell you the truth. Every time you go to a funeral, you're going to hear a eulogy or some words. There was a beautiful one here yesterday for a beautiful grandmother. And the grandchildren got up here and it was very emotional and they spoke. And every time I hear those, I think to myself, those are great words. They're powerful words. They come from the heart at a moment of great pain and grieving. And I always think, gosh, I wonder if we identify the good in people when they're alive. Do we tell them when they're alive how good they are? Because we always tell them when they're dead. Everyone who dies are all saints. Best people ever. But did you tell them when you were alive, when they were alive, how much you appreciated them? I always wonder that. We have to see the good. One of the great things about being on vacation is that I was able to watch a bunch of the World Cup games, you know? And some of them were in the middle of the week at 3 o'clock, which I'd never be home at that time, but on vacation you can do that. And one game, which was very significant, I looked at the game because it was so close to the very end, so close, so close, so close, so close. And it was almost tied, and then there was a problem with the referee taking away a point, and people were upset, and blah, blah, blah. But I noticed the star of the one team look for the star of the other team, and you could see the cameras following him, and the whole time, you could see the angst, you could see the worry, the concern that this player had for the player on the other side. And he was just looking through the crowd to see where he could find him. It reminded me of the story of the prodigal son, you know, the father waiting for his son to come back. It reminded me of the lost sheep, you know, Jesus looking to see, you know, the 99 and then looking for the one that got lost. And he kept going. And then eventually they embraced. And the close-up was very touching because you could see one consoling the other. You could see the love. You could see the embrace. You could see the care, the empathy, the compassion. And I say that because sometimes we're very quick to see what's evil and wrong with the world, but we're not so quick to see the good. There's a lot of good in our world. There's a lot of good in the world. I don't prescribe to that ideology that many of my friends, the pastors of the big evangelical churches, they say, the world! Like the world's evil. No, we're in the world. We're part of the world. We're part of the problem. We're part of the problem. Because we're sinful and broken. We need fixing. We're not better than other people because we come to church, because we love God, because we're Christians. No. We're here because we need God. We need God's grace to be better. And so, part of this thing with the weed and the wheat is recognizing that, yes, we live in a world where there's good and evil, but part of our Christian responsibility is to recognize the good. One of my biggest beefs with the church, with the institutional church, of every denomination, is that we spend a lot of time in condemnation. When something happens, oh, there we are. Big mother church condemning this, condemning that. How much time do we spend recognizing the good that exists in the world? The good that exists. Those of you that are teachers here, and I know we have a lot of them. We actually have a brand new one that we're going to recognize in a little while. But those of you that are teachers here, what works better with a student? Positive affirmation or telling him how wrong he is? What works better? The positive. As Christians, we need to emphasize the positive. Look for the positive. Look for what works, what's good, what's right. Christianity is not for complainers or for whiners. It's for people that are willing to recognize the gifts of God's grace and the beauty of God's grace. So ultimately, the gospel ends with what we say all the time, hey, don't judge. We don't judge. You shouldn't judge. No, it's more than that. Let God be God. Did you hear that in today's gospel? Let God be God. Let God do his job. You do what is good. You discern what is good. You seek to do what is right. And then let God be God. Because at the end, God always cleans up the mess. Always.